I have never seen Donald Trump more humiliated than he just was by New York City Mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani, who not only declawed, defanged, and debased Donald Trump to his face, but he also mocked him. He got Trump to capitulate, and then he embarrassed him. And it was so bad, it was such a masterful performance by Zohran that you are going to want to watch all of, that when Fox wrapped their coverage, they were stunned, visibly, and admitted it, that Donald Trump got played. We're going to get into it all, but before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button because it goes a long way in supporting our work. Now, before we get into Donald Trump humiliating himself, Zohran playing him, and Fox being so shocked, I want to start with what Zohran said only a few days ago about how he was prepping for this.
What do you want to come out of a meeting with Donald Trump?
I want to just speak plainly to the president about what it means to actually stand up for New Yorkers and the way in which New Yorkers are struggling to afford this city. And frankly, cost of living is something that I heard time and time again from New Yorkers about why they voted for Donald Trump. And this is something that has only continued in the last few months of this year, where we're hearing about childcare concerns, rent concerns, Con Ed concerns, even just getting on the bus, just $2.90. And just to make it clear to the president that this is what we're talking about, these are the stakes for New Yorkers and their ability to keep calling this city their home.
Zohran approached this Oval Office meeting a lot like Mark Carney has in the past, or President Zelensky, guys who know that Donald Trump is doing the fake tough guy act, and if you just push back against him, and if you charm him in the right ways, he'll just be putty in your hands, which is exactly what Donald Trump was. Funny enough, because this is how he has sounded in the past. What he most recently said about Zohran in a Truth Social post, we got to check them out for the context before we see how he actually acted in the meeting.
Well, I looked at the polls, and looks like we're going to have a communist as the mayor of New York. It'll be very interesting. But here's the good news: he's got to go through the White House. Everything goes through the White House. At least this White House it does.
Trump recently wrote on Truth Social's self-proclaimed New York City communist Zohran Mamdani, who is running for mayor, this was before he won, will prove to be one of the best things to ever happen to our great Republican Party. He is going to have problems with Washington like no mayor in the history of our once great city. Remember, he needs the money from me as president in order to fulfill all his fake communist promises. He won't be getting any of it, so what's the point of voting for him? So Donald Trump said there will be no money for New York. He is going to do whatever he can to impede Zohran Mamdani. And then what happened today? Well, first, the White House was shut down for the press. They were not allowed to watch what happened when they were talking one-on-one in this meeting. And I know why. Because Trump was going to be so charmed by him that he would completely fold. And that is instantly what he did. Because watch what happened when Trump was asked about whether or not he'll be helping Mamdani before Zohran just mocked him to his face.
Subject to what policies are being said. We had a meeting today that actually surprised me. He wants to see no crime. He wants to see housing being built. He wants to see rents coming down, all things that I agree with. Now, we may disagree how we get there. The rent coming down, I think one of the things I really gleaned very much today, he'd like to see him come down, ideally, by building a lot of additional housing. Yeah. That's the ultimate way. He agrees with that, and so do I. But if I read the newspapers and the stories, I don't hear that, but I heard him say it today, and I think that's a very positive step. No, I don't expect. I expect to be helping him, not hurting him. A big help, because I want New York City to be great. Look, I love New York City. It's where I come from. I spent a lot of years there. Now I'm right here. We took a big setback with the mayor that we had, named de Blasio. I thought it was a tremendous setback for the city. I think this mayor can do some things that are going to be really great.
Mr. President,
we have gone from calling this guy, not just 24 hours ago, like communist scum. Carolyn Levitt was freaking out saying how disgusting it is that this is the guy that the Democrats elected the mayor of the biggest city. She was breaking down in tears. Trump was throwing a fit. And now he loves the guy. Now he's like, oh, of course I'm going to help him. He was great. And it only continued from there. I'm going to play a couple of clips. You're going to want to watch all of them, because watching Trump having been like so psychologically picked apart and just like debased is so funny to watch, especially as Zohran is mocking him to his face and he doesn't even realize it.
I appreciate what
Mr. President, you say you love New York City. Mr. Mamadani, does New York City love President Trump?
New York City loves a future that is affordable, and I can tell you that there were more New Yorkers who voted for President Trump in the most recent presidential election because of that focus on cost of living, and I'm looking forward to working together to deliver on that affordability agenda.
I got a lot of votes. One more. Go ahead. One or two.
Of course, New York City hates Donald Trump. Hates Donald Trump. You got some votes there, Donald, because people live there, not because anyone likes you. But of course, Zohran's not going to say that. He knows he's playing Donald Trump, but we know that he is mocking Donald Trump and that Donald Trump is folding. And he did. When asked about ICE, he gave the exact answer that Zohran wanted.
You threatened to send federal troops to New York City. You both have differences when it comes to ICE agents in New York City. Mr. Mamadani, you called ICE a rogue government entity. I wonder how you reconcile your differences on both of those issues.
Well, I think we're going to work them out, and I think that if we have known murderers and known drug dealers and some very bad people, you know, we want to get them out. And the mayor wants to have peace. We discussed this at great length, actually, maybe more than anything else. He wants to have a safe New York. Ultimately, a safe New York is going to be a great New York. If it's not safe, no matter how well we do with pricing and with anything else, we can talk about anything you want. If you don't have safe streets, it's not going to be a success. So we're going to work together. We're going to make sure that if there are horrible people there, we want to get them out. I think he wants to get them out, maybe more than I do. So we'll work together. We discussed it at great length. Yes, please.
So Donald Trump, who said that he is going to flood the streets of New York with masked ICE agents, is now backing off. Now, of course, everyone believes that criminals should be held accountable, namely the pedophile in the Oval Office who was sitting in that chair when Donald Trump was making that statement. Oh, yes, that was Donald Trump. But Zohran has already said, we will not allow this illegal ICE invasion of our city. You will not be allowed to wear a mask. You will not be able to racially profile people. And Donald Trump said, okay, great. Sounds good. We're not going to let it happen. Instantly was so charmed that he just folded. And it wasn't just on the issue of ICE. Of course, largely what the complaint was about Zohran's campaign is that making sure that working people could afford to live in New York City, oh, what a radical idea, would be such an inconvenience upon the billionaire class, them paying 2% more in taxes. Oh my God, who can imagine? The sky is falling, that everyone would move, and there would be no more billionaires, which doesn't actually sound bad, but it would be such a catastrophe. And that hasn't happened. In fact, billionaires are capitulating to Zohran Mamdani. In fact, one billionaire is capitulating to him who had to say this right here.
Yeah, okay, how about you? Go ahead, please.
You're a billionaire. You have a different address nowadays than you used to, but you used to call New York City home. Would you feel comfortable living in New York City under a Mamdani administration?
Yeah, I would. I really would. Especially after the meeting. Absolutely.
What makes you comfortable?
We agree on a lot more than I would have thought. I think I want him to do a great job, and we'll help him do a great job. You know, he may have different views, but in many ways, you know, we were discussing when Bernie Sanders was out of the race, I picked up a lot of his votes, and people had no idea because he was strong on not getting ripped off in trade and lots of the things that I've practiced and been very successful on, tariffs, a lot of things. Bernie Sanders and I agreed on much more than people thought, and when he was put out of the race, I think quite unfairly, if you want to know the truth, many of the Bernie Sanders voters voted for me. And I felt very comfortable, frankly, in seeing that and saying that. And, you know, it just turned out to be a statistical truth. But, no, I feel very comfortable. I would feel very, very comfortable being in New York, and I think much more so after the meeting. Yes, please.
So Trump, who is constantly saying that New York is a hellhole and it's falling apart and it's terrible, is now like, well, I like this. This guy's good, so I'm on board. Like he got so played. I can't even articulate how funny it is that Donald Trump was like a little kitty cat, and he was just like, just can you rub behind my ears? I don't want to imagine Donald Trump as a cat. What am I saying? That's a little ridiculous. But he's just like, he got played. He so got played by Zohran, and it is so funny. And also so scary that this is what dictators do around the world, that they are able to go in there and be like, hey, Donald, like here's a trophy, or here's a Big Mac, or here's a pat on the back. And then he's willing to excuse human rights abuses. Of course, Zohran is charming Donald Trump and acting like the incredible politician and normal person that he is, and that really, makes Trump excited because he's pretending, I don't think to like him, but to work with him. And Zohran's obviously such a charming guy that Trump has no other response to be like, oh, I love this dude. And Zohran is doing it on behalf of working people, not, continuing a brutal regime like MBS, who was the last person in the Oval Office with Trump, having Trump like do little dances for him and like grab his shoulder and tell him he's his best buddy. But Zohran certainly didn't hold back, especially when he was asked about how openly he has talked and called out the ongoing genocide that Israel is committing. He had this to say.
Mr. President, and you did a piece in all the 9 months around the world. I would like to ask Mr. Mamadani, you've accused the U.S. government of committing genocide in Gaza while President Trump was working on peace. Why that?
I've spoken about the Israeli government committing genocide, and I've spoken about our government funding it. And I shared with the president in our meeting about the concern that many New Yorkers have of wanting their tax dollars to go towards the benefit of New Yorkers and their ability to afford basic dignity. And what we see right now is we're in the 9th consecutive year of more than 100,000 school children being homeless in our city. And there's a desperate need not only for the following of human rights, but also the following through on the promises we've made New Yorkers. And I appreciated the meeting we had and the work that we can do.
Do you agree that President Trump did do a peace and work hard to make the peace? Because he worked hard to do the peace in the Middle East and everywhere. Do you agree with that?
I appreciate all efforts towards peace, and I shared with President Trump that when I spoke to Trump voters on Hillside Avenue, including one of whom was a pharmacist that spoke about how President Trump's father actually went to that pharmacy not too far from Jamaica Estates, that people were tired of seeing our tax dollars fund endless wars. And I also believe that we have to follow through on the international human rights, and I know that still today those are being violated, and that continues to be work that has to be done no matter where we're speaking of.
Zohran didn't hold back. And of course he wouldn't, because he's a real person who is authentic and genuine and cares. And he played Donald Trump while doing all of that. So much so that by the end of this, Fox was mocking Donald Trump. Just take a listen to Brian Kilmeade.
So there you go, live from Washington, D.C. That's what we just watched. Now I'm in New York City. We were watching that press conference. I think J.D. Vance is jealous. I think the president wants to use him as a running mate. They really got along fantastic. Hi, everyone. I'm Brian Kilmeade, lucky enough to fill in for Will Cain. You just saw it, President Trump and New York City Mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani.
Anyone who has watched this show has known that I have been a huge supporter of Zohran back into very early in this year. I started talking about him on the show in about February. We did an interview with him in early March. This is a guy that we should be modeling so much of our politics after, not just because he is so joyful and such a cutie patootie, but also because he brings an aspirational vision to our politics that it can be more, that it can be better. And that even charms a horrible, sick, Grinch-like individual like Donald Trump. So if Zohran can get him to fall in love, if the Democratic Party changes our politics to present this vision to people, imagine what we can do. That is why we need more leaders like Zohran. We're going to be talking about him on the show. And if you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button, leave a like on this video if you stuck around to the end, drop a blue heart in the comments. Keep on fighting, y'all. Don't let them silence you. And until next time, I'll see you soon.